Okay, this is the the fourth lecture for chapter number 3. So we're just zipping along through these. We're now going to switch over to, we were just on, if I can back up here, looking at the crop yield, but now we're just going to take a look at the gene revolution, not the green revolution, but the gene revolution, and seeing how things have changed in the last couple hundred years. We have, from all over the world, people have selected different traits they liked out of crops, and they have chosen, ones more favorable, whether it was larger seed head, or chickens that had more breast meat, or cows that produced more milk, whatever it is that we like. And we've done this, for the last, again, couple hundred years. Things have changed in this second gene revolution, where we're actually digging right into the DNA of organisms and changing them directly. It's a good thing because we've sped up the process and we can very specifically choose the traits that we like. It's questionable on other ends, the long-term effects when you're crossing genes that in nature no way possibly could it ever happen. So these are the good things about the process, and there's, like I said, there's definitely some really good things that can happen here. These, we like this, plants that are cold and heat resistant, so they're not going to be so susceptible to drought. Herbicides, we don't have to put as much pesticides on them. Parasites and pests, they typically will repel them. All these, are really good things. The potential downfalls are just really unknowns. We just don't know what the long-term effect of these organisms will be on us and how they actually compete with others within the environment. So it's I guess the whole idea of fooling around with Mother Nature. What's the long-term effects? All right, here's another video that is under chapter 13 on the links. You can take a look at that on your own. So, simple little question as far as who's better off. People that have a very good diet as far as a lot of nutrition, us, or the people in other parts of the world that don't have the same available nutrients. And the answer, as we mentioned here, is neither. It's both sides of the spectrum. It's better to be off somewhere in the middle, that you have the availability to resources, nutrients, but not in the manner that we do as in regards to the amount of processing that we have and the overabundance of salts and fats and carbohydrates that we do. A quick little depiction of the amount of fertilizers that we'd like to throw on crops. It has skyrocketed since about 1960 or so, apparently leveling off just shy of 1990, but still staying up at a really high level. The problem is even though we're putting all of these fertilizers on there, only a very small percentage of that actually goes into the plant, and the vast majority of it is not taken up by the plant, stays in the soil, washes off, erodes away, and goes into waterways, and eventually can lead to things like eutrophication and dead waterways, typically like in the Gulf of Mexico and just coastal areas. Overgrazing. We don't necessarily see this here in Michigan, but if you go out west where the vast majority of cattle are raised, we see this as being a big part of the problem in regards to soil erosion and just the degradation of soil in general. Cattle have a huge impact on the environment. So, cheap meat is good, but everything else that goes along with it, there are so many potential problems, or real problems, I'll say, with cattle. One is the soil erosion, degradation. Two is the waste product that they produce, using that, utilizing that, disposing of it. Three is how it gets into the waterways and contaminates, pollutes the waterways. Four is the methane these things are belching out all day long is a much more impactful environmental problem for global warming than driving your cars around. So if we want to eliminate a problem, we would have a very difficult time eliminating cars or spending as much money as we do on trying to produce the technology to correct that problem. An easy solution would be to minimize the amount of cows that we eat producing methane gas. That would have a much greater impact on reducing global warming per se, with the output of harmful gases. Next little topic here is hydroponics. You may know something about that already. It's simply growing plants not in soil like on a farm, but in an industrial manner in which you have some type of substrate the plants are resting in. You introduce a water supply that goes through the root system, and you can harvest the plants indoors year-round at any particular location. So it's a really interesting process that we may be seeing more and more in the future. And here's a nice little visual of that. So this doesn't look anything like a farm. You can see that this is open out into the environment, but this could just as easily be taken indoor and have the process completely independent of an exterior environment. So this is something I was mentioning earlier as far as meats. Not all meats are built the same. So the problem that we have with the different animals is that the amount of energy and fertilizers and water that has to go into all these different animals, some use a lot more than others. So as I was mentioning earlier with cows, as you can imagine, they're at the top of the list in regards to material. In this case, we're just talking about grain that has to go into these to produce a certain equal amount of meat or body weight. So it takes 7 kilograms of grain to produce an equal kilograms of meat out of a cow, and we can see the comparison for the others. So once again, cows not really good at choice as far as food. The other thing, and this gets a little more into touchy-feely, which I don't want to stay there too long because that's certainly not the decisions that we make as far as scientists go. But the process, again, the condensing of these organisms into one particular location really increases the environmental impact on that location. So when you have these what are called CAFOs listed over here, concentrated animal feeding operations, this location is almost a dead zone when you look at the impact that these cattle will have on that particular location. Just trampling the soils, and then on the outside as far as the waste product. How would you like to be a worker in this particular location having to dispose of all of the waste product that these things put out? This is something that's going on behind the curtain. We don't think about it, but in order to get all that good meat that we enjoy, this is the other side of it. So you have to deal with all of this waste product that is coming out of these things. All right, another little funny video that you can find under Chapter 13's links. So meat consumption, both just in the U.S. and the world, it has gone up steadily since about 1960 or so. But you can see that as far as the United States, we definitely live a little higher on the hog, if you will, about 2.5 times more meat for each of us in comparison to the rest of the world. Fish, this is one of the few graphs that we're going to take a look at that actually has a negative slope, in which we see that the amount of fish that was out there, I don't know what's going on with this 100 hooks catch thing, but I think we get the idea that the amount of fish harvested has drastically decreased since 1960s to relatively close to today. So just the amount of fishers going out there and the demand and the amount of people, it's not sustainable. So we have to somewhat fix that problem. Tagging along with that problem is this idea of bycatch, in which you're catching organisms that you didn't intend to. The nice one we like to think about that is the dolphins with the tuna nets. They get stuck in the nets. Supposedly they have somewhat corrected that problem. And just looking again at the catch, what has been going on since what we're looking at here as far as 1950, but something that has increased quite a bit since 1990 or so is the amount of aquaculture, which we're going to focus on here in just a few minutes. So the amount of fish that we're now starting to farm is now starting to increase, and that should hopefully, potentially, lessen the damage we're getting in regards to the wild catch, even though it still is rather high, not sustainable. All right, we'll take a break on this one right here, and we'll come up and finish the lecture with a 5th lecture at the end of this.